Protests over immigration enforcement raids that started in Los Angeles over the weekend are now spreading across the country. That includes here in Denver.
Yeah, that's right. As of this morning, we know that several people were arrested following protests yesterday that started at the state capitol, and that's where 9 News reporter Courtney Yoon is this morning. Courtney, we know that officers deployed smoke and pepper balls to disperse crowds there.
Yes, Corey and Jordan, that happened later on in the evening. After gathering downtown, those protesters took to the streets and marched down several roads in the area. Take a look at this video. Protesters were holding signs that said things like "Abolish ICE" and "No human is illegal." Demonstrations and protests started over the weekend in LA as people began speaking out against immigration enforcement raids. This prompted President Trump to mobilize National Guard troops and Marines despite objections from California Governor Gavin Newsom. Since then, more rallies have popped up across the country. The group of protesters here in Denver yesterday evening began marching down the streets after the rally at the Capitol. One group made their way south on Broadway to Exposition Avenue. That's where police ordered them to disperse. Denver police say officers deployed smoke and pepper balls to break up crowds blocking roadways around 8 o'clock last night. Around 3:30 this morning, Denver police told us booking processes remain underway, but so far 17 people have been arrested. 7 of them have been charged with obstruction of streets and failure to obey a lawful order. 3 were arrested for graffiti. Another 2 people were charged with second-degree assault to a peace officer. Other charges include interference with police authority, unlawful throwing of projectiles, and failure to obey a lawful order. Denver police say there were numerous reports that people were throwing rocks and bottles at officers. Around 10 p.m. last night, there were still people walking in downtown carrying flags and signs, but as of this morning, the streets are clear. Live in Denver, Courtney Yoon, 9 News.
Courtney, thank you. And those protests aren't just happening here and in Los Angeles. In Texas, thousands of protesters in Dallas filled the streets marching around Margaret Hunt Hill Bridge. Demonstrators shouted several different anti-ICE and anti-Trump chants, such as "Abolish ICE" and "Impeach Donald Trump." Meanwhile, in the city of Austin, video from anti-ICE rally shows at least one protester being tackled and pinned to the ground by several law enforcement officials. Austin authorities say 8 people were arrested in these protests. And this morning, we are learning Texas Governor Greg Abbott says he will deploy the National Guard to locations across the state in response to the protests.
In Chicago, protesters filled the streets where tensions flared between protesters and police. Officers were seen in several physical fights. It's unknown on what led up to the interactions and if anyone was detained. Also, a car was seen speeding through a march. This is the video right here. It's unclear, though, if that driver was arrested or what their intentions were by driving into the crowd.
And eyes continue to be on Los Angeles as the city braced for the 5th straight night of protests. Overnight, parts of Los Angeles were under a curfew after the mayor announced it yesterday. Officials say the curfew is necessary to try and stop vandalism and theft. Since day one of the protests, at least 378 people have been arrested in the past 4 days. Mayor Karen Bass says 23 businesses have been looted. That's why she put that curfew into effect from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. That started last night.
This morning, a federal appeals court issued a temporary stay on a ruling that would let those migrants challenge their deportation. That ruling followed a Supreme Court decision saying even migrants deported under the Alien Enemies Act must have a path to challenge it. But DOJ lawyers argued that the U.S. does not have custody of them anymore and cannot be forced to bring them back. For now, that ruling is on hold. The appeals court will decide what comes next.
All right, at 7:04 right now, let's take a live look outside right now on your Wednesday morning. This is at the CSU campus in Fort Collins. Really, really warm today, already at 62 degrees at 7 o'clock in the morning, and we're going to be close to 90 today. Let's get more of your forecast right now with senior meteorologist Chris Bianchi.
Hey, thanks so much, Corey. Yeah, it's going to be on the warm side today. We do have a few more of those isolated storms around this afternoon as well. But right now, the view from Lookout Mountain, how about that? Just a few high clouds overhead. And things looking pretty nice at 7:05 a.m. on this Wednesday morning. Mid-60s right now in the 9 News backyard, and we're in the low 60s out at the airport. 66 here in downtown Denver, 50s, 60s Eastern Plains, 40s and 50s for the most part in the high country. Today we top out at 89 degrees, partly cloudy skies, 25% chance for a shower or storm between 3 and 8 p.m. The higher odds will be for us in the foothills for a storm today. The forecast will get into the upper 80s for us this afternoon, and we'll have those clouds increasing for us once again this afternoon as well. We'll have those storms around today, as I mentioned, but tomorrow and Friday, there's going to be a bit more of a severe weather threat. I'll detail that for you coming up in my full forecast. Brianna?
Chris, thank you so much. 7:05 is your time for this Wednesday morning. Still taking a live look of I-70 and Havana Street, where we are seeing a big parking lot on both the east and westbound lanes this morning because of a disabled vehicle that happened earlier this morning and then also a crash. So it's just impacting this area very heavily. So this is along I-70 between Chambers and Havana Street. I do want to switch things over to our main map. So just check those speed times for you. In this area where I just showed you that CDOT camera, those speed times are clocking in around 14 to 15 miles per hour, and we are not improving because that was the same speed time that I checked about 30 minutes ago. For those taking 225 just after Parker Road, we're also seeing heavy delays this morning. Just no crashes to report in this area. That's going to be a 16-minute drive. And then westbound 76 for those in Commerce City, also a 16-minute drive. Just heavy delays all across the Denver metro area, as well as I-270, a 12-minute drive there. And those speed times are clocking in at 31 miles per hour.
All right, Brianna, thank you. Aurora City Council has been slowly restricting public comments for months, and now they're shutting it down altogether. Monday night, council members voted to suspend in-person meetings and public comment indefinitely until a civil case over the death of Kylan Lewis is resolved. An Aurora police officer shot and killed Lewis more than a year ago. Since then, protesters have regularly disrupted council meetings, calling for accountability from Aurora police and city leaders. The city has denied any liability for the shooting, and the DA has declined to charge the officer involved. Last week, Lewis's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against that officer and the city. Aurora City councilors say that they're going to meet virtually and refuse to hear any public comment until that case is decided.
A couple in Aurora says their baby is alive because of a drug that does not yet have full approval from the FDA. His parents now fear he could lose access after the FDA recently decided not to grant that. 5-month-old Gilbert Dryden was diagnosed with a rare and often deadly disease called Barth syndrome a week after he was born. He now receives daily shots of an experimental drug. The FDA decided not to grant full approval last month despite a panel of medical experts voting in its favor. Now the company that makes the drug says they may not have the funding to keep supplying it while they wait for the FDA to review it again.
Omeprazole is like hope. Omeprazole is like our baby has a chance at growing up, at like getting to play with his sisters and live a long life.
There are no other treatments for Barth syndrome. The drug maker says 35 patients worldwide are relying on it.
The FDA has approved another tool in the fight against RSV. The therapy, Influenza, is designed to be given in a single 105 milligram shot to protect newborns and infants from mild, moderate, or severe RSV through all 5 months of their first virus season. Merck, the drug maker behind the treatment, says that they hope it's going to be available before the start of the 2025-2026 respiratory virus season.
President Trump's lawyers are back in court today trying to overturn his hush money conviction. He was found guilty of falsifying records last year, making him the first felon elected president. Now his legal team wants to move the case to federal court, banking on a Supreme Court ruling that gives former presidents some immunity for official acts. But state prosecutors say Trump's payments weren't part of his job and that immunity doesn't apply.
Well, this morning, President Trump says that he wants to phase out FEMA after this year's hurricane season. He told reporters Tuesday that disaster response should shift to the state level, with governors taking the lead. Trump also said the federal government will start cutting back on disaster aid, but emergency managers are concerned, warning that most states do not have the resources to handle major disasters on their own. And this comes as NOAA predicts a particularly intense hurricane season still ahead.